Hi, it's Michelle. Welcome to vlog 8 for my vlog series for my new book, Identity, which is available to be purchased on www.amazon.com or www.amazon.com.au. Today I'll just be giving a brief insight into chapter 7, which is titled Back Home. And basically during this chapter quite a few things happen and it's pretty intense, so here we go. So I get back home to my family in Melbourne and unfortunately it's nothing like how I had imagined it would be. I hadn't lived at home since I was 16, returning when I was 25. As you can imagine, all my siblings have now grown up, and I describe it as kind of like living in a foreign country amongst complete strangers. So it's not a very kind of it didn't feel like a very welcoming environment, and I didn't really feel as though I was wanted being back at home. And so now I was missing Thomas and our little dog Maggie back in Queensland. So it's like everything had been reversed and I was back in this position of just feeling sad and confused, I guess, and overwhelmed with everything that was happening. Then to make matters even worse, a couple of days later, not long after I had arrived in Melbourne, Thomas, we usually would speak pretty much every day, I think, as I recall, or we would speak quite regularly. And this one particular morning, I remember just calling him. I think it was like, like after a Friday night or Saturday night or something. And I would call him and there was no answer, and I'd call him, there was no answer, and I just kept calling him and I was freaking out, thinking maybe he was in an accident, maybe something had happened, and I was hoping that he would be okay, and I was just completely losing it. And then I got a text message telling me to check my email, and I checked my email, and that's where I found that he had decided to dump me via email. And I just remember shrieking and screaming out loud and just crying immediately because I had no idea that this was coming. I may have kind of like had a feeling that we wouldn't work out, but I never imagined that he would just do it via email and then kind of just leave it as is. Needless to say, I didn't cope with that breakup very well. That was my first serious relationship that I started when I was very young, and he was kind of all I knew in my whole life. A good part of my life of being a teenager and an adolescent and a young adult, like my whole life had kind of revolved around him and our relationship together. So now that he had kind of cast me aside and rejected me, I didn't know how I was going to survive on my own and how I was going to be on my own, because I had never really had to experience this before. But the good thing that I gained out of this was that it brought me and my sister Katie together. At the time, it brought us closer together as we had some bonding time watching our favourite TV shows together. And I just, at that time I wished that was enough to hold me together and help me get over the breakup with Thomas. And unfortunately it wasn't. Every day I would just lay in bed and just cry and was just completely hopeless and completely miserable. And my mum was so worried that she called in some mental health professionals, and they would come in every morning and monitor how I was feeling. And I remember one guy, as I was sitting there just bawling my eyes out, I remember him just telling me to bluntly just get over it, like it was just so easy to do. And I remember at that time just feeling as though I wanted to commit suicide. And so much had happened in my life that I didn't know how to how to cope. I felt so rejected by the people around me that I thought loved me. Sorry. And I just felt like all my life I tried to do the right thing, and my life just turned out to be a nightmare. And then also in this chapter I talk about at the end how sorry. I talk about how my dad died when I was 16, and I was blamed for his death, and so that led to me living away from home and just being depressed and having suicidal thoughts all the time for the next decade until I was diagnosed with bipolar and came back home. So I didn't really have much of a life at this point in time. So that is chapter 7. Sorry for the tears, but that's really hard to talk about, but I'm sure that a lot of people can relate to hard things that they've gone through, and this is just part of my story, and I'm glad that I could share it with you, and I hope that you enjoy reading the chapter even though it's quite sad for me. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video. God bless.